Welcome to this explainer of the biblical text. I'm so glad you're joining us today because we're about to dive into an absolutely epic historical story. We're talking massive plagues, a daring rescue, a seriously stubborn flock, and the rise of a totally unexpected shepherd. So, let's jump right in.
But hey, before we get to the big historical events, let me ask you something. Have you ever completely forgotten something incredibly important? Like, maybe you completely forgot to say thank you when someone did something amazing for you. Like getting the absolute best birthday present ever. But you get so distracted playing with it that you just totally forget to thank the person who gave it to you. We've all been there, right?
Well, the biblical text tells us that his people, the Israelites, did exactly that. After he did some of the most mind-blowing things in history for them, they vexed him. That basically means they really frustrated him because they completely forgot his mighty power. They forgot all about the unbelievable miracles he performed right in front of their very eyes in Egypt.
Section 1. Plagues and the Rescue. To free his people from the oppressor in the region of Zoan, he unleashed some terrifying plagues in a wild sequence of events. Imagine walking down to the river to get a drink, and the water has turned completely into blood. No way, right? Then he sent these thick, devastating swarms of flies and frogs. Just frogs everywhere, in their beds, in their ovens. Next, he let grasshoppers eat up all the crops, and he destroyed their vines and livestock with giant hail and huge bolts of lightning.
Because the oppressors wouldn't let his people go, he unleashed his hot anger. The biblical text tells us he didn't spare them. Instead, he sent a band of destroying angels, gave them over to a severe plague, and ultimately struck down all the firstborn of Egypt. It was a very serious moment that showed just how far he would go to save his people. But look at this amazing contrast. While the roaring sea ultimately engulfed and defeated his enemies, he gently brought his own people out. He led them safely through the wild, scary wilderness, exactly like a careful shepherd leading a flock of soft, fluffy sheep. He guided them so perfectly that they didn't even have to be afraid.
Section 2. Rebellion in the Promised Land.
After bringing them safely through that wilderness, he lovingly brought them right to the border of his holy land. He drove out the other nations before them and gave the tribes of Israel their very own lands as an inheritance. He gave them beautiful homes to settle down in, safe and sound. He kept his promise to them perfectly. But instead of being thankful and remembering those parted seas and crazy plagues, they started a terrible cycle. First, they actually put him to the test. Second, they rebelled and completely refused to keep his statutes, which were the good rules he gave them to keep them safe. And third, they angered him and aroused his jealousy by building idols, which were just fake, pretend gods made out of wood and stone. The biblical text brilliantly compares them to a faulty bow. Imagine being an archer in a huge competition. You pull back your bow to shoot an arrow and snap, it breaks, or the arrow just flops to the ground. That bow is totally useless, right? That's what a faulty bow is. Someone who is completely unreliable, disloyal, and faithless. The text says they were acting just like that faulty bow, repeating the exact same mistakes their ancestors did.
Section 3. His righteous anger.
When he heard them worshiping these fake idols and putting him to the test, he was furious. He rejected Israel completely at that time, and he even abandoned the tabernacle of Shiloh. Now, the tabernacle was this incredibly special tent he had specifically set up to dwell in, right there among humans. But because they turned away from him, he left that tent. The consequences were incredibly sad. He let the Ark of his might, this beautiful golden box representing his presence, be captured and sent into captivity by their enemies. He gave his people over to the sword, and fire consumed their young men. It was such a heartbreaking time that there were no happy wedding songs being sung, the priests were defeated, and the widows were so overwhelmed they couldn't even weep. Section 4. A new shepherd chosen. But pay close attention here, because the story doesn't end in sadness. He always has a plan to rescue his flock. The biblical text says he awoke as if from sleep. Like a mighty warrior waking up, he stepped right into action. He beat back his enemies and put them to everlasting shame, ready to protect his flock once again.
And when it was time to establish his forever sanctuary, he made a very specific choice. He didn't choose the tents of Joseph or the tribe of Ephraim. Instead, he chose the tribe of Judah. He chose Mount Zion, a place he truly loved, to build his sanctuary.
And this is absolutely the most inspiring part of our explainer today. Out of everyone in the whole tribe of Judah, who did he choose to lead his people? He chose a humble young boy named David, his servant. He didn't pick some fancy prince living in a castle. No, he literally took David straight out of the dirty, smelly sheep pens to do a massive job.
It's just such a perfect picture. He brought David from tending literal fluffy sheep out in the fields to being the true shepherd of his very own people, Israel. And David did an amazing job. The text says he shepherded them beautifully, leading them with true integrity of heart, meaning he was honest and loved God, and he guided them safely with skillful hands. From a boy with sheep to a king with a nation.
Wow, what an incredible journey, right? From the plagues in Egypt, to the rebellion, to the beautiful choice of a young shepherd boy named David. We definitely don't want to act like a faulty beau, and we don't want to make the same mistake the Israelites did by forgetting all the good things he's done. So, think about this as you go to school and play with your friends this week. How will you remember his mighty power today? What is one way you can show him you haven't forgotten? Keep that in your mind, and we'll see you on the next Explainer.